Welcome to the conversation on the way to COP26 Glasgow UK. I'm Her Royal Highness Princess Abze Djigma, and I'm very glad today to welcome in the conversation two minds who's really fantastic, give them a challenge and they bring up a solution. I'm welcoming today in the conversation Robert Stenner, who's the Deputy Director of the MIT Energy Initiative. Most welcome, Robert. It's a great honor to have you in the conversation together with my brother, the Vice President of the West Africa Development Bank, Braima, Soares, Cassama, Luis. Welcome in the conversation. He's somebody who's working the talk, who has at the core of his job the population, the people first. He held several hats. He has been also deputy minister in his country, in charge of finance, tax, and treasury. So most welcome, and we will hear from him what he's doing in his fantastic bank for the UEMOA of population. This discussion, we will be having it in French, partly, and in English, to the interest of our citizens of UEMOA Region, counts for 130 million. C'est un honneur et un plaisir pour moi de recevoir aujourd'hui le vice-président de la Banque ouest-africaine de développement, la BOAD, qui est basée à Lomé. Et aujourd'hui, Monsieur Cassama, Luis, nous fait l'honneur de participer à cette émission pour nous donner une essence de ce que la BOAD fait. Mais avant d'être à la BOAD en tant que vice-président, il a travaillé auprès de son pays en tant que ministre délégué au Trésor et ainsi occupé aussi des postes de très haut niveau à la BCAO à Dakar. Vraiment, nous sommes très ravis de vous avoir avec nous, vice-président. C'est un honneur que vous participez et nous attendons d'entendre ce que vous avez à dire. Aujourd'hui, dans le studio, je suis rejointe par deux jeunes filles qui sont étudiantes au collège. À ma droite, ici, nous avons Claire. Welcome, Claire. Et à ma gauche, nous avons Maud. Welcome, Maud. So without further ado, so let me start with Robert. So you are working at the MIT and you're passionate about energy transition, how to end energy poverty. And you're somebody who's walking the talk, always going to solutions, because with solutions, that's where we solve problems. Can you give us a little bit of essence of what are your job is doing and the wonderful university that you're working in?
Well, thank you for having me, Your Highness. This is really an exciting opportunity for me to talk a little bit about what we do at MIT and what we're doing with the Global Commission to End Energy Poverty, which you also belong to, of course. MIT is one of a number of universities that are deeply involved in developing low-carbon technologies for the future that can help countries not only in North America and in Europe, but in Africa, South Asia, Southeast Asia, South America, and all over the world to decarbonize their energy systems in the coming decades. And as you know, we have to do it very urgently. And this is something that we have to tackle in a very intentional way, and in a way that reflects the economic circumstances of people everywhere.
Thank you very much, Rob, for the excellent wrap-up of the institution. We really appreciate the great work that MIT is doing to solve big problems. Et cela me donne une parfaite transition pour que notre vice-président de la Banque ouest-africaine de développement nous présente la BOAD, qui est une très belle institution des pays de l'UEMOA, dont je fais partie, et pour voir comment est-ce qu'elle soutient. Pouvez-vous nous présenter la BOAD, Monsieur le vice-président Cassama?
Je vous remercie, Madame Abze, et bonjour à tous les participants. Pour dire que voilà, BOAD, c'est une banque qui est commune à tous les 8 pays de l'Union économique et monétaire de l'Afrique de l'Ouest. Et bientôt, comme vous disiez tout à l'heure, ça va faire 50 ans, notre anniversaire. Et c'est une banque dédiée au développement de nos pays. Voilà, comme vous le savez,
Oui.
UEMOA, c'est une, comme je disais tout à l'heure, une union économique et monétaire avec une banque centrale et une banque de développement.
Vraiment, le cœur de la BOAD, c'est le soutien économique de l'emploi. J'ai entendu parler du plan Joliba. Pouvez-vous nous en dire un tout petit peu plus par rapport au plan Joliba?
Et le plan
Oui,
Joliba, c'est un plan stratégique en fait.
très bien.
Donc, on l'a donné le nom de Joliba juste pour voilà, montrer un tout petit peu qu'est-ce que le nouveau président veut montrer. Joliba, c'est une fleuve Niger à
Oui,
côté des pays, donc des pays voisins. Donc, c'est juste pour insuffler un tout petit peu notre maison, la BOAD. Donc, le plan Joliba vise effectivement augmenter la capacité d'intervention de notre institution.
just to wrap up what Vice President was just saying, he was explaining, we have 8 countries in the West Africa, which includes Benin, Togo, where the headquarters is the bank where he is. We have Ivory Coast, we have Burkina Faso, where I'm coming from. We have Mali, we have Guinea-Bissau, where
We have Senegal.
we have Senegal,
Senegal.
and Cote d'Ivoire and Ivory Coast. So we have 8 countries coming together, and they have they have the Multilateral Development Bank, which belongs to our West Africa Central Bank. So, and to that hand, with the vision of the president of the bank, H.R.H, they come up with a plan called the Joliba plan. Why Joliba? Because Joliba is a river. Like if I say the Moselle or the Danoa or the Seine who crossing Paris, so we take give the name of, that's what he was saying. So Rob, with what you're doing to regards to the ending energy poverty, I want you to elaborate on how we make the interconnection between climate, what decarbonizing, what are the tools that you have in your pocket that can be used for a multilateral bank, and narrow it down to a countries. What can be done? What can we do together? That would be interesting to hear your insight from that.
Well, I think Vice President Cassama has hit on one of the very important things we can do, and that is encourage cooperation on a regional basis amongst countries. That's important in the electricity system because it means that you can have very large generation facilities and share infrastructure to some extent, which helps to lower the cost of electricity. Mm-hmm. But it's especially important when we're talking about renewable energy, in particular wind and sun, that are intermittent sources of energy or electricity. That means they don't always shine at the times when there's demand. And that mismatch between demand and supply causes problems on the grid. And it means that you can't have as much solar and wind on your system as you'd like. And so you can improve the situation by having a very large system so that you have a diversity of geographical locations where power is being generated, but also a diversity of loads of different kinds, commercial loads, residential loads, industrial loads, EVs, so that there's always somebody wanting energy when energy is available. So that's a very important aspect of what we can do together. However, we have to go beyond just making electricity generation clean and expensive. We also have to focus on the challenges of delivering it to people and industry so that people can have electricity in their lives, but also that we can power the modernizing economies of countries in Africa and elsewhere. Too often, that is neglected as an unsolved challenge, the problem of distribution, we call it. Mm-hmm. And as you know, this is a topic that we spend a lot of time discussing in the Global Commission. And I think it's an area that's ripe for further investment and creative thinking, technical thinking, regulatory thinking, and thinking on the behalf of multilateral development banks like the Development Bank.
So, thank you. But this is a perfect transition to go to Vice President Cassama. Monsieur le Vice-président, Monsieur Rob, justement, a touché sur le point des piliers du plan Joliba, ce qui est l'énergie renouvelable. Je pense qu'il y a plusieurs axes sur lesquels vous travaillez, où il y a des liens par rapport, que ce soit au financement, des financements alternatifs dont je sais que vous êtes vraiment très pointu sur cette expertise. Pouvez-vous nous élaborer un tout petit peu quels sont les axes du plan BOAD de Joliba?
Avant de rentrer dans les 5 piliers du plan Joliba, je voulais juste donner des prérequis. En fait, il y a 3 axes de notre intervention d'abord. Le premier axe, c'est le renforcement de notre fonds propre.
Très bien.
Ça veut dire, voilà, les moyens nous permettant d'avoir d'impact. Voyez. Donc, d'abord, on est dans un processus d'augmentation de notre capital social. Ça veut dire il y a un fonds propre qu'on veut mettre en place, voilà, pour qu'on aille des marges et de latitude pour pouvoir atteindre la population. Ça, c'est le premier axe. Le deuxième axe, ce sont des ingénieries financières qu'on est en train de mettre en place. Juste pour rappeler que la BOAD a fait des émissions et des eurobonds en janvier, environ 890 millions de dollars. Donc, et toutes ces ressources-là vont nous permettre d'aller un peu plus loin. Et on veut avoir d'impact. Voilà, il faut qu'on soit à côté de nos populations. Il faut que les populations sentent en fait qu'il y a une banque de développement et qui est là. Et cette banque de développement veut mener
la BOAD des peuples.
Voilà, exactement.
La BOAD des peuples. Ça, c'est vraiment extraordinaire. Et félicitations. Félicitations pour l'émission des bons. Vraiment, c'était une première et ça, faut vraiment le célébrer sous votre leadership, bien sûr, et le faire savoir à toutes nos populations que la banque fait un travail extraordinaire en mobilisation de ressources pour accroître ses fonds propres. Vraiment, nous vous en sommes très, très reconnaissants.
Voilà. Maintenant, pour aller directement au bout de votre question, concernant les 5 domaines d'intervention de la banque, d'abord, il y a l'agriculture et la sécurité alimentaire. Vous savez, l'agriculture, c'est la base de notre activité, en fait.
Oui,
voilà.
C'est sûr.
Et le deuxième domaine, ce sont des énergies renouvelables. Voilà. Comme disait tout à l'heure M. Robert, voilà. Le problème peut-être peut se trouver au niveau de la distribution, en fait. Voilà. D'avoir la capacité d'atteindre la population lointaine. Donc, c'est un des défis de la banque, en fait. Et le deuxième domaine, ce sont des infrastructures de base. Des routes, notamment, voilà, pour que la population puisse aller mener ses activités, notamment. Et le quatrième, c'est la santé et l'éducation. Santé et éducation, c'est très important. Voilà, c'est clé. Et le dernier champ d'intervention de la banque, c'est l'habitat social. Voilà. En résumé, voilà, donc, ce sont des points que moi je voulais
en tout cas, je vous remercie.
Pour dire que, juste pour finir,
oui, je vous en prie, allez-y.
Juste pour finir, pour dire qu'il y a un montant d'environ 5 milliards d'euros qui sera alloué à ces 5 domaines-là. Donc,
5 milliards d'euros.
5 milliards d'euros. Ça veut dire que, en fait, donc, il y a 25% du côté privé et qui sera touché par ces montants.
Ah ben vraiment, là, vous savez, l'UMOA des peuples sont ravis des piliers que vous avez décrits là et ayant parcouru moi-même le milieu rural, je sais ô combien et nous vous en sommes très reconnaissants de mobiliser, d'avoir pu mobiliser 5 milliards pour pouvoir mettre dans ces secteurs clés, surtout l'éducation, la santé, avec le Covid. Et je sais que la banque a beaucoup soutenu tous les pays de l'UMOA dans ce domaine-là pour pouvoir mettre à jour les infrastructures. So just to wrap up what Vice President was saying, it was going a little bit further on what the Joliba plan is. You know, our region count on agriculture a lot. Then we have the agriculture segment, the renewable energy, infrastructure means roads to connect the people, to also be able to process the agri-products. And for that to do so, they have been able to mobilize. And it's 5 billion euro who will be put on those projects. So I think that, Rob, there is something here that you see why I wanted really to have that conversation between both of you. There is a land to work together, to connect, and to deliver. Again, and I think that bringing the academia with your way of thinking, or challenge, solutions, is really what should be done. And I think that you also have some business model that you're working at the MIT that you may share with us, that the leakages also that we can learn from each other and see how the collaboration can go on and also leverage and also attract more fundings. As Vice President was saying, that they look always to have more partners and fundings, local fundings also to move along. Your take on that?
Well, there's no shortage of money out there, you know. I think and people invest in energy infrastructure all over the world. Many pension funds will invest in it. Many mutual funds. Many of our retirement programs are based on those sorts of investments, and they're eager for energy investments in developing countries as well as developed countries. The challenge is to make them financially attractive to investors. They have to be profitable. Very often we point our fingers at countries where investment is low because the risk that there will not be a good return to investors is very high.
Yes.
And we say, well, they're doing something wrong. They need to increase the price of electricity so that the company can make more money, increasing the tariffs, in other words. And we've looked at that very carefully. And of course, tariffs in Africa are not especially low. they're not unusually low. That's not the problem. The problem in many situations is that people aren't wealthy enough to pay for electricity delivered in the conventional way. And there are 2 or 3 solutions to that I think deserve consideration. One is that there should be subsidies for electricity in countries that are managed in a sustainable way. And that's often where things fall apart. Oftentimes governments will commit to providing very large subsidies for electricity that they can't sustain for a long period of time. And companies or investors look at those situations and say, well, this isn't going to work, so we won't invest there. They need to find other ways.
Je sais que la politique du genre, la jeunesse, c'est quelque chose qui vous-même personnellement vous tient à cœur. Et je sais que la banque également travaille là-dessus. Et j'aimerais, si vous avez quelques idées concrètes que la banque fait, par exemple. Nous serons très ravis d'entendre, et l'audience aussi, par rapport à la jeunesse, par rapport au genre, si vous pouvez nous donner quelques éléments.
Le nouveau président, il tient à cœur les rôles que peuvent jouer les femmes au niveau de notre institution, la jeunesse ainsi que les gens handicapés. Voilà. Voilà, ces trois catégories des gens au niveau de notre institution
Oui.
commencent à, à montrer déjà leurs capacités. Juste pour vous dire, Monsieur le Président, dès son arrivée,
Oui.
il a nommé son directeur de cabinet. C'est une femme et c'est une jeune aussi. Voilà. Donc, il y a une
Merci à
femme
vous.
dedans. Voilà. Donc, ça donne déjà des signaux, effectivement, que les autorités veulent donner une opportunité à ces gens-là. Très récemment, on
Oui.
a déployé donc notre plan Oasis. Donc, c'est un plan de transformation institutionnelle. Ça veut dire le capital humain commence à gagner donc d'importance. Bon, c'est pas parce que c'était pas le cas dans le passé, non. Mais
Oui.
bon, maintenant on veut juste renforcer, on veut donner l'impact. Et très récemment aussi,
oui.
on a nommé notre représentant en Côte d'Ivoire, à Abidjan,
Oui.
le chef de mission résident
Oui.
de la BOAD à Dakar. Et c'est une jeune, très jeune, bon, avec la qualité et avec sa compétence. Donc, on a trouvé que vaut mieux le placer là-bas. Autrement
Excellent.
dit,
Magnifique.
bon, voilà, il y a des actions et qu'on est en train de mener parce qu'il y a certains qui sont vacants au niveau du siège à
Oui.
Lomé. On veut recruter des gens, voilà, des jeunesses avec la compétence et les
Bien
femmes
sûr.
pour
Bien
pouvoir
sûr.
remplir ces postes-là. Voilà et la politique voilà, que nous menons. Et aussi, il y a pas mal de participations financières de la banque. Hein. Donc, je peux vous dire que la banque a mis 200 000 dollars au niveau de notre centre de collaboration pour aider en fait les jeunes au niveau de l'Afrique. Voilà. Et chaque fois qu'on est sollicité, la BOAD n'hésite pas à donner son concours pour que ces couches de la population un peu sensibles puissent réussir. Voilà.
Ah ben vraiment, merci pour... j'ai pas de mots. C'est une émotion incroyable de voir que non seulement c'est écrit sur le papier, mais on l'exécute. Just to wrap up what just the Vice President said, it's just amazing. Things that is even give me tears in my eyes and emotions. They are walking the talk. They just then I'll come back to you, ladies, because he's keen on the work involving the youth, the young talent. When you're talented, they don't matter about your gender. To bring you are the right person, we put you at the right place. And give us a concrete example that the representative of the bank, because in each of the 8 countries you have a representative, the one in Ivory Coast that they just assigned is a young woman. And the director of cabinet of the president of the bank, she's a woman, a young woman. Talent, that just to show also to the investors that we're not only talking about, but we're doing it. And to push it even further, with the Regional Cooperation Center, they put $200,000 to help training the young leaders to regard to climate. So that is really walking the talk. And President Cassama, we really thank you so much for sharing those concrete examples straight to the point that this will also inspire others to take your path, even commercial banks. And I hope that in your key performance indicators that you will say, hey, I'm giving you a line of credit. I want you to report back to me that you're really putting young, talented people, because we do have young, talented people, and we shouldn't let them think that their bank don't think of them. Thank you for really going on the UMO of the people. Thank you so much for that. Rob, so you heard what he just said. Ladies, I want you to jump in with what you have heard from Robert from the MIT and from Vice President. What is your impressions? What would you like to ask them? You know, you can ask them questions. There is no stupid questions. All questions are very good. So, you know, just go ahead. And you can also give you just your feedback, what you feel, your feelings. Who want to start?
Maybe I can give you a little bit more too, just to respond to what Mr. Cassama was saying about education.
Sure. Yes, please go ahead.
And I think that perhaps the young women will have something to say about this as well. Yes. MIT has made an enormous investment over the last several years in digital education, with the idea that it's hard to come to MIT. You have to get in. It's very, very expensive to travel to America. Perhaps we can find a way to teach people without them having to come or us having to go, using the internet. And so I'm happy to say that this fall, my organization, the MIT Energy Initiative, will be launching its first ever MicroMasters degree or certificate in renewable energy that people can take all over the world. And we don't need Mr. Cassama for this one because it doesn't cost anything to take the classes. You can take them without paying a fee and connect. If you want to pay a small fee, you can also get a certificate that says that you took it, and you can use that certificate to show people that you have some expertise. So this is something that we hope to develop much more over the next several years in the developing country and developed country.
So let's give me a suggestion. Can we hear the executive, the deputy executive secretary from the United Nations Framework on Climate Change, Ove Sarmat, what he says about action for climate?
We are the UN agency responsible for addressing the climate change at the global level, to bring all the governments together to take key decisions to start with, and then facilitate them in the implementation of those decisions. One of the main recent decisions was, as many of you would know, and here it is, the Paris Agreement. The Paris Agreement is one of the cornerstones of our work, because we are now in the process of implementing that Paris Agreement. For our today's conversation, I would like to focus on one part of the Paris Agreement, which is Article 12.
Yes.
And I'll read it out. Parties, when they say parties, it means the governments shall cooperate in taking measures as appropriate to enhance climate change, education, training, public awareness, public participation, and public access to information, recognizing the importance of those steps with respect to enhancing action under this agreement.
This is the climate actions for the from UNSCCC that every country has the mandate. It's something, the Article 12 has been signed by all the parties. And that's what you are doing with your initiative. By doing that, you are supporting the US also to fulfill the Paris Agreement. By doing so, Vice President Cassama also are doing the implementation of the Article 12 of the Paris Agreement. That means that it belongs to education, awareness, and small activities. Whatever we do in our lives counts. So, ladies, you heard about education from Robert. So what can you say? I start with you.
Well, I think it's a really good thing that it's more digital, because the travelings and everything, it can be so hard to do. And the way to do it is now much easier. And I think that's a really good thing. So I think we should do more things like that.
What concrete things?
More digital education, and easier and cheaper, like better education, and like the prices for university in America are so high. I think we can do that much better.
But Rob come with the solution that you don't need to spend that much. That is a great news for you, right?
Yes, exactly.
And how about you?
I think at school you really need to encourage your students to learn and to keep learning always. And I think when you make your stuff to learn digital, you really do that in your own way. And I think that's what COVID kind of taught me. I don't know if that's for you too, but I got digital classes due to COVID. And that's for me like the way that I learned, wow, we've been going through to school like every day, but it can be so much easier. And for me, it was actually kind of a nice way to find out that I could do my own thing in my own house and learn everything that I did at school actually like at home. So that was for me.
That is fantastic. And you know, bilaterally with the girls who were talking earlier, and in their schools, they have an extreme innovating way of learning. That is, they have their program that being given to them at the beginning of the year, and everyone can manage his own way. I say maybe it's the future of schools. And it seems that, and also they talk about mental health. And that's, I was speaking to the two young ladies, and they said that, well, that has helped them the way that this school has bring it up, has helped them to really overcome the stress from the COVID that we heard a lot during COVID period, and still is how to do. But I think that, yeah,
it's something. One of the few things that has come out of this COVID situation that I think is a positive. A positive. And you know, I think besides education, here we are doing this interview via the internet and having this conversation, and I think, you know, that is also very, very important, because it means that we can also engage with one another in addressing global problems much more readily and a much higher level. It's so terrible to fly to places to have these meetings, and the ability to do them this way is very, very important. I think we've had a permanent positive change in the way we're going to interact.
Permanent positive change. I take this one. This is really so. Président Cassama,
oui.
J'aimerais vous entendre plus sur ce que vous avez dans le panier. Dites-nous d'autres choses que vous aimeriez rajouter pour nos jeunes, pour les entreprises qui nous écoutent, qui vous écoutent et qui savent que vous êtes vraiment à leur côté. Et que c'est pas juste top et eux ils sont en bas et on ne pense pas à eux par rapport au secteur informel, qu'il y a vraiment des produits, de la garantie, des instruments que la banque met à leur disposition. Vraiment, nous serons très honorés s'il y a des instruments dont vous pouvez partager avec l'audience. Nous vous serons vraiment très reconnaissants. Et d'autres sujets que vous souhaiteriez également aborder, nous serons très heureux de vous entendre.
Moi, je voulais juste parler sur les objectifs du développement durable. En tant qu'institution de développement, a décidé d'allouer à peu près 25% de ses ressources au financement des projets durables. Dans notre union, il faut juste que je rappelle, on est à peu près 130 millions d'habitants, avec un revenu par tête annuel de $970 l'an. Donc, vous voyez, si je prends en compte le taux de croissance de notre zone entre 3 et 6%, ça veut dire que d'ici 30 ans, l'estimatif montre que voilà, on pourra avoir des impacts très significatifs au niveau de notre population. En fait, c'est ça qu'on veut, parce que la BOAD, notre identité, c'est d'être une banque d'impact, en fait. Voilà. Il faut que les gens nous sentent. Il faut qu'on soit à côté des gens, en fait. Voilà. C'est ça qui est plus important. Voilà. On dit BOAD, mais il faut que les citoyens sentent, en fait, que voilà, il y a une banque de développement qui est là, qui est à leur côté. Voilà. Ça, c'est très important. Voilà. Maintenant, par rapport aux instruments financiers que la BOAD peut mettre à la disposition des uns et des autres, pour dire que ces instruments-là existent déjà.
Oui.
Il fallait juste que les gens respectent les chemins, voilà, pour y accéder, en fait. Voilà. Qui veut faire son activité. Nous, maintenant, on a un projet qu'on appelle Kersamba.
Oui.
Le projet Kersamba, c'est le financement des petites et moyennes entreprises. Vous savez, au niveau de notre union, c'est déjà, les études le montrent, hein,
Oui.
CPME, voilà, c'est des moteurs de la croissance, en fait.
Tout à fait,
Voilà.
tout à fait.
C'est des moteurs de croissance. Mais il y a un problème de manque de financement.
Oui.
Quel genre de financement CPME-là cherche? Ce n'est pas des financements à très court terme.
Oui.
Tout ce que les gens veulent, c'est des financements à long terme, pour lui donner le temps de travailler et de bien s'organiser et
Oui.
d'avoir un leadership assez compétent, voilà, pour pouvoir chercher aussi leur concurrence au niveau sous-régional et même pas, pourquoi pas, au niveau international. Voilà le défi. Moi, je pense que ça pourra aider nos petites et moyennes entreprises pour décoller,
Oui, bien
en
sûr.
fait.
Je pense que vraiment merci pour cet éclairage et pour ce concours financier pour les très petites entreprises, comme vous le savez. Et encore une fois, vous avez à cœur à mettre le financement pour les jeunes entrepreneurs, les jeunes filles, l'entrepreneuriat rural. Je sais que ça vous tient très à cœur et que c'est au niveau rural aussi je sais que vous financez également les plateformes multifonctionnelles liées aux femmes, les coopératives, vous essayez de les structurer et vraiment nous vous en remercions. Et ça, c'est avoir de financement à l'impact. L'impact, c'est important. Ce qui nous touche, ce qui permet d'augmenter les revenus, d'améliorer la vie au quotidien. Ça, c'est ce qui parle aux populations. Et vraiment, ça, vous ne pouvez pas savoir, je suis tellement heureuse de vous écouter. Et je ne manquerai pas la semaine prochaine, je serai à Ouagadougou. Et vraiment, je ne manquerai pas à communiquer cela à nos femmes qui sont dans les coopératives, que vraiment, il ne faut pas avoir peur. On peut s'organiser et trouver le chemin pour venir ensemble vous voir pour que leur projet puisse trouver des financements. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Vice-président, pour cet éclairage. So just to wrap up a bit, what Vice President Cassama was saying is about, at the end of the day, it's about impact finance impact, and also long-term financing. That's what is needed. And it's also raised the fact that our engines of economies is a very small entrepreneurs lies in rural area, that the instruments are already there, but it's a matter of putting the light on, really putting it on the spotlight, that people can come and don't be afraid to come and bring it. And also he was pointing out regarding the number of the population is keep on growing, and the GDP growth. If we want to increase that GDP growth from 3 to 6%, a long-term finance is needed, and also impact finance is needed. And I think, Rob, and to this regard, there is something out there to do in terms of impact financing. And I know that a lot of financing is also targeting women with the coalition of the 2X challenge that has been initiated, by the way, by the US, but now you have a global 2X challenge of finance that I think by memory that they were able to raise 11 billion for women. That we need to find out to see also how we can narrow it down. That is that like the big lines of electricity that I'm in my little village and I can't get electricity. That will make sure, and I think that digitalization has a role to play out there. So I would like to have your take on that and give us maybe some inputs that can help also the path, how we can assess that and move it a little bit more.
And I think invention has so much to do with the solution to these challenges as well.
Yes.
And I see that so much in my work. I get to be the director of the Tata Center for Technology and Design.
Yes.
And that allows me to finance Ph.D. students from MIT who go to different countries and try to understand their needs and abilities and work with people there. NGOs like your organization, Mama Light, as well as many others, as well as companies and governments, and they together invent new things that work in that context and might not have been invented if they hadn't gone. And so invention can come from anywhere.
Yes.
And it solves so many of the problems that we've talked about. It solves the problem of providing very small amounts of energy in rural contexts. It enables women to, in remote settings and traditional societies, to participate in the process of invention. It creates businesses that don't need money to be transferred out of the country in order to thrive, and solve that hedging problem in a different way. And again, the development banks can play such an important role in facilitating the startup of those companies, but also in facilitating the creation of the underlying infrastructure that we need for them to be able to engage. And I think that means the internet to a large degree. And I'm very excited to see the internet spreading into more and more rural areas. And I think that will help us to make things happen much faster in the coming years.
Yeah, but energy is critical, and is really the cross-cutting. Without energy, we can get internet, the broadband.
But we're so lucky now with solar getting much less expensive than it has been for many years.
Yes.
With battery storage technology getting cheaper, largely as a result of EVs becoming so popular around the world. But we're also seeing new storage technologies emerging that will be a factor of 4 or 5 less expensive still. And I think that will enable, along with cheaper solar, a lot more rural electrification, a lot more internet to be used, a lot more evening lighting to be used, a lot more refrigeration techniques, pumping techniques to be used than in the past. And we'll begin to see, because of that, rural economic development. It doesn't have to be by the conventional means of grid electrification. In some cases, that's totally appropriate and necessary. But we really have an opportunity to use these new technologies to solve these chronic problems in hard-to-reach areas and bring more people into the modern world.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And I think that also we can make it in the modular way. I start with a little devices, but as I go, technology also, digitalization can allow me to, when my energy demand grows, I can plug others. And that is so, I think those are the technologies that need to be more spread, that we need to communicate more also on that. I mean, what President Cassama was saying is, it's a matter of getting informed and having access to the information, because sometimes there is a lot out there, but we even don't know that they exist, that they're cheap and they're reliable. And I think that if I may, si je peux demander à mon vice-président, vraiment je le prends, c'est le mien, à mon vice-président, je ne vous lâche plus. C'est vrai que c'est la communication, sincèrement, ça c'est ce qui nous manque dans nos régions aussi. Je pense que moi je suis au courant de beaucoup de choses qui se passent, mais malheureusement, même au niveau local des nations, je pense qu'il y a quelque chose à élaborer, et je serais ravie de pouvoir travailler avec vous pour voir comment est-ce qu'on peut amener ces informations-là aussi beaucoup plus loin en milieu rural, pour permettre à nos populations d'embrasser les technologies et de pouvoir aider aussi. Parce que plus nous allons améliorer nos conditions de vie, nous allons pouvoir contribuer davantage au produit intérieur brut et payer nos taxes, ce qui va agrandir l'assiette fiscale et vous permettre à vous de pouvoir emprunter encore plus et ainsi de suite. Ben, je pense que ce sont des informations pédagogiques que nous devrions aussi embrasser et expliquer davantage à nos populations locales. Ben, je pense que c'est... j'aimerais avoir votre avis là-dessus, mon vice-président.
Non, tout à fait, tout à fait, tout à fait, madame. Moi, je suis d'accord avec vous, hein, parce que voilà, c'est ce que manque dans nos pays. Hein. Bon, c'est vrai qu'aussi aujourd'hui, il faut le reconnaître. Par exemple, aujourd'hui, si on parle des monnaies électroniques, par exemple, aujourd'hui, je peux envoyer l'argent via téléphone à quelqu'un qui est voilà, dans les villages.
C'est ça.
C'est possible. C'est
Tout à
possible.
fait,
Bon.
tout à fait.
Et tout ça, ça montre un tout petit peu l'avancée des choses. Mais il faut aller encore plus. Et c'est dans ce sens-là que, voilà, je vous rejoins pour vous dire que il faut, il faut encourager cette initiative auprès, auprès de nos gouvernements et pour permettre en fait la population lointaine
Oui.
de pouvoir accéder à cette technologie d'information-là. C'est le travail à faire, il faut y aller. Comment le faire, c'est ça qu'il faut réfléchir et il
Oui.
faut des investissements en fait. Il
C'est
faut des
ça.
investissements, il faut des infrastructures technologiques,
C'est ça.
voyez.
Oui.
Il faut placer beaucoup de choses ailleurs, voilà, pour qu'on puisse effectivement y arriver. Mais quand même, c'est une très bonne initiative qu'il faut continuer à faire.
So before we end the conversation, I would like to, the Deputy Executive Oves Ahmed has questions for the two ladies who's with us on the floor. So let's take a listen.
I would like to ask the young participants who, the
Absolutely.
twin young ladies, tell us what would you want us to do this year immediately that would help you take sort of local action in your school, in your community, with your family and friends.
Well, I think an important thing is to take time to teach us about climate change and encourage us to find our own way. Because at my school, we actually really try to have lessons about it, and I learn a lot. And the kind of things I learn is that there are really small things, like with climate, which doesn't really get with this stuff that was just said. I'm sorry about that, but it makes me really. Like I really think about when I buy like a bottle of water because I don't want to buy new plastic, and I have like a shampoo bar because I don't want all the plastic bottles.
Yeah.
And it makes me aware of the fact that everything is going on now and that I have something to do with everything. And I really love that. So I think if there's one thing that you have to change now for our schools and our education, it's that take time to teach us because we're young and we're really open to learn everything. So use that.
And I think it's really important to start teaching it in the first place and put it in the books and take care that we need to learn it and that it's not an option that a school can choose, but that it's mandatory.
Yeah.
It's mandatory.
That it needs to be done.
But that is a good note. Let's make it mandatory for school that they put everything on the books. So I would like to hear from my two guests your last word of conclusion or the other burning issues that you would like to raise or interest solutions.
Well, I'd like to convey my appreciation for what your two guests have just said, that we are all in this together and have an opportunity as a global society to confront these challenges, both collectively and individually. And I'm constantly astonished by how little care people take in their daily lives to reduce their impact on the climate and the rest of the environment. And I think we could all do much more. And again, perhaps another positive lesson that's come from this COVID experience is that we can have individually smaller footprints. It's astonishing how little impact there was on global emissions from the pandemic and the shutdowns. It only dropped by, a hand percentages. But I think we saw opportunities to make much bigger contributions individually to sustainability. And I'm very encouraged to hear that this is something that young people think about and talk about. And I think we can do much more together.
Thank you very much.
Can I add something to that?
Of course, please add.
I
Please
also
go
think
ahead.
that because of the quarantine and everybody was spending so much time with like themselves and alone and your parents, you kind of really got the time to take a look at the world around you and start looking at what you were doing every day. Because I got really aware of how much I was using because I was so much at home all day. And it really, really made me aware and encouraged me to like eat less meat and really try to make my own footprint smaller. So I think that's also something that COVID kind of taught us.
Excellent. Thank you for raising that. You see that as Rob was able to trigger you on the thing. That's good. That's really collectively we can reach our point. Monsieur le vice-président, votre mot de conclusion.
Et le mot de conclusion pour dire qu'effectivement, je suis content de partager ces forums avec vous. Donc, ça nous donne encore plus d'informations et comment chacun de nous voit et l'évolution des choses, notamment sur les domaines qui nous concernent. Bon, ça
Tout à
a été
fait.
un plaisir, en fait, d'écouter M. Robert, donc il a déjà beaucoup d'expérience sur l'énergie renouvelable, ainsi que voilà, les deux étudiantes sont là avec nous. Pour dire que la BOAD reste fière de tout ce qu'il fait jusqu'à maintenant et voilà, il sera en contact, en collaboration, en partenariat avec tout le monde. Voilà, on est ouvert. Et voilà, je vous remercie, madame.
Grand merci à vous vraiment pour votre main tendue, pour tout ce que vous faites pour notre région et soutenir les 8 pays de l'UMOA. J'ai été rejoint dans la conversation aujourd'hui par le vice-président de la BOAD, Monsieur Cassama Ibrahima Soares. Merci beaucoup d'avoir pris part à cette conversation. And joining us from the US, MIT Deputy Director of Energy Initiative. Thank you so much, Robert, for joining the conversation and bringing us your insight, input, and encouraging us. Thank you for your strong leadership for ending poverty. I know that in your heart, people first. Thank you for that, because if we put the people at the center, our youth, our next generation in the center, so then we can reach globally and collectively. Thank you so much. I'm Her Royal Highness Princess Abze Djigma, and I'm delighted to be able to host today our young student, Maud and Claire, in the studio. And stay tuned for the next episode. Thank you so much for joining us. It has been a great pleasure. And thank you to you for all the active work that you're doing at your level. Thank you for joining.